Hey y'all, it's me. It's your girl, the real deal, and you already know. Like, share, and subscribe. All right, y'all. We're going to day 6 in the trial of Henry Dinkins, allegedly kidnapped and unalive Raja Terrell, 10-year-old Raja Terrell, at a sleepover, allegedly over his house. Okay, so we're gonna go on and get started real deal, but before we get started, I'm gonna need y'all to hit that like button, okay? Hit the like button. Thank you, DJ. Okay, let's get started, y'all, so I can go back to work. Here we go with day 6.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? I do. Please have a seat.
Please state your name for the record and spell both your first and your last name.
Matthew Gehant, MattheWgehant.
What is your occupation?
I'm an asset protection area manager for Walmart supply chain.
How long have you been employed with Walmart?
Going on 19 years.
What do your responsibilities entail?
Currently, my responsibilities center around safety and compliance for the facility.
Okay. And then what specific location do you work out of?
It's Sterling, Illinois, DC 7024.
Back in July of 2020, what was the store that you were assigned to?
I was working at the Clinton, Iowa Walmart Supercenter, store 2889.
And then what was the nature of your position with the store at that time?
I was an asset protection manager. Main focus there was centered around security and preventing criminal activity, a little bit of safety, a little bit of compliance.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention to the Walmart store there in Clinton. Where is that store located relative to Highway 30? And then when you come into town, where it transitions into Lincoln Way?
So it'd be just north of Lincoln Way and then off of South 25th Street.
All right. Does the parking lot of the business actually run along Lincoln Way on one side? And would that be to the south?
The parking lot would be on the north side of Lincoln Way. And then there's a frontage road with a gas station in between.
Oh, absolutely. All right. That being said, could you describe for us the store itself? Does it have any video surveillance cameras affixed to it?
Yes, it does.
Where are video surveillance cameras affixed to the business?
We have several on the rooftops, several inside the facility, and then we have some that are actually built into the doorways of the facility, the entrance and the exit.
Okay. And then within the store itself, are there video surveillance cameras?
Yes.
What would be the positioning of video surveillance cameras throughout the store? And if you could speak specifically to the cash registers, I would appreciate that as well.
Yeah, so the cameras vary based off the store needs, but every point of sale, which would be every register in the facility, does have a camera dedicated to that specific register.
In the Walmart store at Clinton, if customers are checking out, are there checkout areas that are self-service?
That's correct.
And in those areas, are there surveillance cameras affixed to the registers that customers could use to check themselves out?
Yes, there are.
All right. Now, the other topic that I'd like to discuss, for the video surveillance cameras outside the store, would they pick up any activity in the parking lot?
Yes, they would.
Do they also pick up activity of individuals approaching the store and entering the store?
Yes.
And then once the subject enters the store, can you basically determine that individual's movement throughout the store up to the point of checkout and departure?
That's correct.
I want to direct your attention to July 11th of 2020. Were you contacted by law enforcement officers of the Davenport Police Department?
Yes.
And what was the nature of that contact?
They basically just gave me a time frame, vehicle description, subject description, wanted to know if I had any video. They actually met me up at the store there, and we went to the security office where we reviewed video for those time frames.
Okay. As you sit on the stand today, do you recall the description for a vehicle of interest?
I recall it was a sedan. I don't remember the exact color or make or model.
Certainly. And then as far as the description for the subject of interest, do you recall that's today?
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you recall about the subject of interest as far as physical descriptors?
It was a fairly large black male, described to be, somewhat medium height, but fairly largely built.
All right. And then beyond that, were you aware that law enforcement was investigating a report of a missing child that had occurred on July 10th of 2020 in Davenport, Iowa?
Yeah, once we started reviewing the video, that's where we started kind of discuss the specifics of what we were actually looking for and why we were looking for it.
Okay. Was July 10th then the date of focus?
Correct.
All right. And then did law enforcement indicate to you that they actually had a time that they wanted to focus on based on a pinging of a cell phone associated with the subject of interest?
Yeah, they didn't share a whole lot of specifics for the reason why the time frame, but they did have a pretty narrow time frame that they wanted to look at.
Okay. And what would be that time frame as it relates to the time the store opens up?
So I believe it was approximately between 6:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. was the time frame I was given. That was kind of right during the time of COVID, so our store actually changed its hours during that time frame, and we didn't open until 7 a.m. We're generally a 24-hour facility prior to that.
All right. Did you have an opportunity to sit with the officer who came and reviewed video surveillance camera for the time frame of 6:30 to 7 a.m. on July 10th of 2020?
Yes.
Did the officer then identify a subject of interest and a transaction that he observed taking place at one of the checkout stands?
Yes.
Were you requested to obtain the receipt for that transaction?
Yes.
And then how is it that you're able to identify what receipt would belong to the purchase made by that subject of interest?
So basically, you would just match up the time frame for that specific camera. So I recall it was a self-checkout camera, so I'd find that register number, reference that to the camera system, and then reference that to our electronic journal. Our electronic journal is where all of our store receipts are tracked digitally, electronically. And then basically, you would match up the timestamp associated with that camera shot versus what the journal was showing, and that would provide the receipt. You would also match up the items that are being purchased and compare them to what you're seeing on the electronic journal.
As you watched the video surveillance footage, could you see what items the subject was purchasing?
Yes.
And what items was the subject purchasing?
It was 2 bottles of bleach.
Okay. Your Honor, may the record reflect that I'm showing counsel what's been marked as State's Exhibit 87. May I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 87 for purposes of identification. I'd like for you to look at that exhibit and tell me if you recognize that exhibit.
Yeah, that'd be the copy that I provided to the police department.
Okay. Is that the receipt for the subject of interest that purchased those 2 bottles of Clorox?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move to introduce State's Exhibit 87 into the record.
Exhibit 87 is admitted.
Mr. Gahant, and I'm saying your name incorrectly. Can you pronounce that for me?
It's Jahant.
Jahant, there we go. Mr. Jahant, can you tell us what the date is on State's Exhibit 87?
It'd be July 10th of 2020.
What was the time of the purchase?
It'd be 7:08 a.m.
And then what are the items documented as being purchased?
So it's 2 bottles of bleach, 81 ounce, same SKU, $4.42 at retail.
Okay. And how did the subject of interest pay for those 2 81-ounce bottles of bleach?
I paid with cash.
Did that conclude your involvement in this matter? And actually, let me just rephrase that question. Were you also involved in turning over copies of the activity that was observed on video surveillance cameras, both outside and inside the store?
That is correct.
And was that associated with the subject of interest and the vehicle of interest?
Yes.
Did that conclude your involvement in this matter?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have no further questions of this witness.
Mr. Freeze?
Sir, the time at 7:08 a.m., that's the time the transaction actually occurred?
Yeah, so that time actually generates from the second that that receipt prints. That's the timestamp that it puts on it.
Okay. So we can assume that that's the time the gentleman who purchased these items was leaving the store, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you said this is Clorox bleach. You know that?
I don't recall. It looks like it's Clorox by the description, but I don't know the exact brand.
Okay. And we know this is from your store because it says ST number 2889 in the upper left-hand corner,
That's correct.
and that's the store identifier?
Yes.
That's all I have.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down. Thank you.
Okay, y'all, that witness has stepped down, and he did buy 2 bottles of Clorox. He bought 2 bottles. What in the world did he do with 2 bottles of Clorox? He ain't cleaned up no dog mess. Because I use it for my dog sometimes, and they have pneumonia, you know, in their urine. But anyway, y'all tell me what y'all think. Y'all think Henry Dinkins is going to be guilty or not guilty? And I will put it also in the community live also. But he did buy the Clorox like the little boy said. I'm out, y'all.